Seraph of the End, is one of the more prominent shonen of the previous decade. Action-packed and filled with anime stereotypes, it was no wonder that it became rather popular with mainstream audiences. At first I wasn't that impressed with its premise. For me it seemed like just another entry that tried to capitalize on the success of the post-apocalyptic world idea, which Attack on Titan made extremely successful at that time. In 2012, the world is supposed to have come to an end as some calamity is ravaging the global populace and leaving only children under the age of 13 untouched. Not only that, but what's remaining of humanity in this very dire condition is terrorized by some strange monster creatures, dubbed appropriately the Horsemen of the Apocalypse. If all this wasn't enough, another mystical predator appears, namely the vampires, who look like elves for some reason. It's unclear how these creatures of the dark came to be, but they're in charge now of humanity. It didn't take long for them to enslave children.
Let me show my gratitude by offering my blood.
And made their unwilling supply for blood. Now there are also these demon swords with which you can make a contract with, empower your weapon, like the most shonen out there. Alright, this anime is a bunch of ideas and concepts that were popular at that time put together into a giant mess that for some reason works rather well. The less the show explains, the better it flows, I guess. Still, there are some weird decisions it took without properly establishing some basic elements, which would have made the anime a bit more cohesive. What kind of vampires are these? They can walk in broad daylight, and they don't burn, or even sparkle.
It's like diamonds.
How is that possible? Oh well, also when they bite someone, the victim does not turn into one of them. That transformation only takes place if the vampire allows the human to drink his blood instead. What?
I offer eternal life.
These are some weird liberties the writer decided to take without making it clear how these monsters operate. Anyhow, there are more shonen stereotypes to include here, one of which will be the main character having feelings of love for his best friend, who is also his main rival, of course. How original. This whole anime seems to swing the other way, as I'm on the topic. Even from the opening song, we see the protagonist get very close to his friend, and their intimate connection is teased throughout the show.
I'll do whatever it takes. I swear on everything. I'll save you.
Not to mention this.
Who's that?
His friend, apparently. Or lover.
Oh, at least the anime has some fan service. That's what I'm looking for in an anime. And thankfully, we get some girl on girl action as well.
Oh, come on, don't be so shy!
I think I'm getting carried away, kinda like the anime.
Oh yeah?
Alright, Yuichiro Hyakuya is the brunette teenage boy protagonist of the series. At first he's introduced as an orphan, held captive by vampires, but soon after, he manages to escape and join the remaining of the human faction. Here, the writers thought it would be appropriate to also introduce the high school setup, because it is very popular in anime after all.
I kill a monster and get slapped with a suspension? They should be promoting me, not making me rot in this civilian dump.
It was easier to develop his character as he's in school, which allows him to make friends and have contact with people of his particular age. All that being said, it's kind of weird how the whole tone of the series abruptly changes, as if the first episode didn't really happen, and the story actually begins now. But his best friend, Mikaela, will still remain a prominent figure in his memory and military life alike. But before Yuichiro is ready to go to war, he has to first make a friend and become part of a squad. At the beginning of his journey, he meets Shinua Hiragi, the main heroine of the story.
You fear making connections because you're afraid you may lose them. It sounds lonely.
She might look all petite and innocent, but she's nasty, sarcastic, and enjoys teasing others.
At first, they were like two rams butting heads, but it wasn't long before they started to fall in love.
If Eventually, she becomes the squad leader and receives quite a lot of screen time in nearly every episode. Shinwa is a welcome addition to the show, as she is playful and brings a bit of humor to an otherwise darker story.
You don't have to say it, I know what you're thinking. You look drop-dead gorgeous, Shinawa!
It was nice to see her interact with Yuichiro, as he struggles to get some passing grades in school and fights constantly with other classmates.
Wow, would you look at this score? How impressive!
Hey, cut it out!
Eventually, the little spoiled lolly even starting to fall in love with the protagonist. It happens near the end of the series, so I doubt it will carry over to the second season. Considering the shonen genre and its impotency of actually incorporating a compelling love story
Sexual relations!
among action and other stereotypes, I say that this little side plot will be completely forgotten, sooner rather than later. It's a shame though, as Shino's naughty behavior really works with the composed and serious way Yuichiro presents himself. It could be that he's not interested in girls.
It sounds lonely. Don't you want a girlfriend or maybe a boy?
I mean, he certainly had the opportunity to get busy with a female classmate, but he doesn't. He merely accepts her letter of love.
I know this is out of the blue, but would you take this letter?
Maybe he did pursue her off-screen. Who knows, I guess. But he definitely has good chemistry.
I think I might be falling for you.
Yoichi Satome is the other best friend archetype for the main character. He's frail and insecure, but kinda determined to protect others, revenge the death of his sister, who died trying to protect him from a vampire. A compelling enough character arc. What I think though, is that at first he was supposed to be a substitute for Michaela. You see, the blonde BFF was dead at first, but they decided to retcon his sacrifice and reintroduce him to the story as the main rival. Two best friends ripped apart by warring factions and opposing ideologies makes for more of an engaging story than having an insecure, frail guy look up to you for guidance.
I have to make sure that nothing in this world can take away the people I hold dear ever again.
Speaking about rivals, it's time to also introduce the tough guy with a chip on his shoulder and a bad attitude. Shiho Kimizuki is a clear-headed teenage boy with excellent combat ability, but is cynical, sarcastic, and looks like a troublemaker. At first he thinks less of the main character, but after a few fights and some heartfelt moments of bromance, they become friends. Shiho is sort of a mad tsundere. I mean, he has a bad temper, but he does actually care about his teammates more than he lets on.
What? Okay, now you're just making stuff up. I was never in here watching him sleep.
Last member to join Yuichiro's entourage is Mitsuba Sango. Another lolly joins the army, I guess, and Mitsuba was on the front lines ever since she was 13 years old. She is hot-blooded and strict around her teammates. She wants to act tough and be a standard soldier.
We can't afford to have any weaklings in our squad, you hear me? One little slip and we're all dead, so stay alert!
Clearly Mitsuba has the most field experience, and yet command is entrusted to Shinwa, which pissed her off.
After all, I'm a mature woman. The whining of an incompetent loser doesn't affect me one bit.
All that aside, she does not add much to the story. Don't get me wrong, I like me some girls, and the more the better. But as a character, she does not stand out, in my opinion. I think her boobs are bigger than Shinwa's, which is great. That's definitely a positive. Finally, time for the man of the hour to make an appearance. Guren Ichinose is a lieutenant officer, captain of the Guren squad, and leader of the Moon Demon Company. He's served as a father figure for the main character and his mentor, giving him advice on many occasions.
Huh?
That's for trying to kick a superior officer!
He's smart, values teamwork and cooperation, scolding Yuichiro for always acting on his own, maybe because they are so similar in that regard.
I shouldn't even be wasting my time here. I deserve to be in the company.
No, you deserve this!
At first I really like this guy. I mean, Guren is hot, powerful, and popular with the ladies. What's not to respect about him?
Welcome back, Lieutenant Colonel Guren. I hope everything went well.
As well as you'd expect.
Sadly, he's a bit too arrogant and superficial, which certainly takes away from his charm.
I've got some sleep to catch up on.
At least you know your place. We'll handle things like we always have. Without you.
Even the other higher-ups tell him that he ain't that big of a deal. Therefore, he should treat others with a bit more respect. Guren is also a teacher at the academy, where he barely attends class, which is also a clear example of his ego and self-importance getting the better of him.
The reason I'm making a rare appearance in class today is because we've got a couple of transfer students I want to introduce you to.
He used to have a girlfriend in the past, namely Shinoa's older sister, Miharu Hiragi.
My sister Mahiru was taller, and she had the kind of rack that made all the boys lust after her.
Sadly, she died a few years ago. Now she's part of Guren's cursed gear, a position-type demon weapon, which takes the form of a katana, and Miharu herself. Guren certainly is popular and has a pretty strong fanbase, maybe even bigger than Yuichiro's. He certainly has the better teammates. I mean, hell, yeah. This dude basically has a harem. I mean, yeah, there's also a pothead with his smoke pipe, but otherwise he has some fine ladies alongside him all the time. That's a nice variety of hair color and bust sizes. One is a stealth-like ninja, while others fight with their sword or even their bare fists. Guren is living the life, man. Sayuri has a crush on him, and now she provides him with emotional support, probably later into the night. Shigure Yukimi is my favorite. I just love girls in a military uniform, and she looks so submissive and pure. It's just obvious how wild and nasty she can become. On the surface she's calm and tends to hide her emotions, including her feelings for Guren. She just needs a chance to let loose. I'm telling you. So yeah, Guren has a harem, he has 3 girls that like him, a best friend, an imaginary girlfriend that he uses as a weapon. Love it. The only thing that kinda sucks in his life is the fact that he always seems to get his ass kicked by vampires. Guren is supposed to be strong, but these vampire nobles overpower him too oftenly for me to be that confident in his abilities. Also gotta address the fact that humanity is kinda weak. The show makes vampires way too powerful, as they easily defeat prominent figures from the demon army. It seems not fair if you ask me. I'm constantly rooting for Guren to survive his encounters, as the enemy is way too strong, even with a cursed gear at your disposal. One last thing to mention, I dislike this overpowered dark energy coming from the main character. It's the easy way out of a difficult situation. It makes a complete mess out of previously established abilities and power differences between characters. I gave Seraph of the End an 8.3 out of 10. It managed to properly develop a lot of characters in a restricted amount of episodes, while also keeping the story interesting and full of action.